Hi, and welcome to Peer Support for Everyone, where you can learn how to be a resource to support the mental health of all the people in your life. I'm Tim Desmond, the founder of Peer Collective, which is the home of the best peer counselors in the world.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us again. My name is Nyamun Wang Mashar, and I'm the Director of Peer Counseling here at Peer Collective, but you can call me Moon.
And the title for our video this week or the topic is privacy and boundaries in peer support. And so the first question that I have for you, Moon, is really about confidentiality,
Yes.
right? So someone comes to you looking for emotional support and they tell you things that they're not telling everybody. And I'm curious, how do you relate just as providing emotional support for somebody? Like, how do you think about confidentiality? Do you feel like everything should be confidential? Are there any limits to that, or just like how do you relate to it?
I think that once you enter that role of creating that safe space, or once you enter that position of naming yourself as a support for somebody, one of the pillars of that safe space is confidentiality, and it's an agreed upon understanding by both of you of what your boundaries are, and the commitment that you both make to keeping and respecting the privacy of both of your conversations, and being able to be honest about anything that is alarming, anything that alerts you, any concerns that you have, in a very transparent way.
Yeah, definitely. So like, just like the core assumption if you're trying to be a support for somebody, like what we talked about in our last time was about being able to have this grounding of openness and acceptance, and where someone can kind of be their full self and talk about whatever is happening for them and all of their feelings. And so much of being able to do that is being able to maintain some degree of privacy and not wondering, okay, who else is going to find out about what I'm telling you? So that confidentiality. I'm curious, for professionals, for medical or mental health professionals, there are limits to confidentiality, and so the specific limits. So, like as a licensed therapist, if I learn about a crime that was committed in the past, I maintain confidentiality. If I learn about someone who might be harmed in the future, I'm mandated to break confidentiality. I'm mandated to break confidentiality to protect children or elders who are abused. I'm mandated to break confidentiality if I believe there's someone who's identifiable who could be murdered. And I am mandated to break confidentiality if I believe someone is in um, at serious risk of killing themselves. So those are some examples. But for example, if I find out about infidelity or actual crimes that have been committed in the past, or even nonviolent crimes that will be committed, then I'm bound to confidentiality.
Mhm.
But I'm just curious, like, when we're for the people who are watching this, if you're not mandated, if you have no legal requirements to do this, do you feel like there are any limits to confidentiality that actually make sense?
It's so important to establish and stay in that realm of connection for as long as you need to, so that you both are present and fully understanding of the space that you're creating, that there aren't the limits of that confidentiality are not as rigid as they might be in a professional status. And so when these things happen, as difficult as it is, um, the reason why somebody is coming to you when they're in crisis, or they've trusted and confided in you as they're having these thoughts, is that there's no other safe place where they feel like it's safe enough to talk about what's going on internally. And there has to be a certain sacredness to it. And you really have to validate the emotions that might be felt within the person, and still be able to name and speak through and express your concerns around what they're sharing with you. But I do think that you still need to stay committed to that confidentiality, and you still need to respect and protect that space and that understanding, just so that person also knows that when they are going into that state of crisis where they can't trust their own actions, or they can't trust the actions of others, that they have an outlet to speak through. They have an outlet to be able to lay out what their concerns are about themselves or others, and that's where the spirit of peer support and the blood of peer support really pumps through the veins. It's in that validity, it's in that understanding, and that full trust that I could be as open and honest with this person about what I'm going through, without the fear of repercussion, without the fear that anything that I say, as alarming as it might be to the general public, I still have that space and that person to be able to speak through with it. And then through that relationship, you start to go through, because of that built trust and because of that connection and because of sharing both of your worldviews in a transparent way, go through healthy coping mechanisms, go through a healthy way of going through that conversation and maneuvering those feelings with somebody who truly supports and is on your side, to get you through this in a healthy way.
Yeah. So you have, like, what I'm hearing you sort of say is like this idea that if you don't have this legally mandated need to break confidentiality in these situations, then I'm curious, how do you, like, what advice do you have for people if you're offering support to somebody and you do learn about, let's say, like someone who really might hurt themselves, or you learn about children who are at risk of abuse. Like, let's say, just like, even just taking those examples, um, how do you balance this kind of the sacredness, the confidentiality, the ability to really be present for somebody with, um, obviously, like, the deep desire to protect people who, and to protect life. Like, how do you, like, any advice for people about how do you negotiate that?
Absolutely. I think that you could stay loyal to your deep need to protect others and protect life. And in that, that's what's so unique about peer support. It's that there is no protocol to how you respond to somebody. It's about really giving of yourself in that conversation as much as the other person is giving of themselves. And
Mhm.
so being able to name and being able to talk about, what the information is doing to you emotionally, and how to come together and come up with a plan, or come up with a commitment that you both make, to how to get this back to a healthy place that you both agree on. I just by example, in that the presence of peer support, I have certain traumas that have happened in my childhood, that when someone shares with me either their desire or their experience with that specific trauma or with the sexual trauma, in this relationship, and the reason why it is so authentic is that I'm able to name my own lived experience within that and talk towards how that has made me feel, and really be able to open somebody else's worldview to how others are affected, or how you've been affected, or be able to help them to understand their environment, and in a way that they are also a contributor to building it. They also feel a sense of obligation and a sense of autonomy to be able to put in their input and have a back and forth dialogue about what's going on, and get to a deeper space and a deeper understanding, and play either that devil's advocate, play that ally, play the other role of how someone might be experiencing this. So I think that for anybody who's going through it, where it becomes a difficult thing to go through, first it's about understanding and knowing your own boundaries and your own triggers, and being able to be authentic to that, and be able to name and speak to that. But when it gets into your personal relationships, where it's somebody that you're really invested and you really care about, it really grows your capacity to be able to sit and really want to get to know how this person is feeling, and being able to validate that fear, that anger, while still holding space to be able to have that healthy dialogue about what they just named, or the situation that they're in, or the potential situation that may arise arise because of how they intend to react or however they intend to act in that situation.
Yeah. So what I'm getting as you're talking about that. So I hear a couple of things. So the
Yeah.
first one, like just as I'm imagining it kind of concretely, if I've put myself forward as I'm creating safe space, I'm putting myself out there as being willing to be in a support role for somebody, and I find out about children who are in danger. So confidentiality doesn't mean that I pretend that I don't have any subjectivity. It doesn't mean that I pretend that I don't have feelings, right?
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that I'm sort of like trying to be this blank slate.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it's saying like, yeah, so I want to be here for you,
Yes.
and I really care about you. I'm also hearing about these kids, and I'm concerned about their safety.
Yeah.
And I want to know, like, how can we, and it's like the way that we would talk about it in the sort of in the psychotherapy world is maintaining alliance
Yes.
while you're setting whatever type of boundary. And so it's like, I care about you, and I'm not going to go into this robotic, like, you just crossed a line and now I call the cops, and
Yes.
like whatever relationship we had is done.
Yes.
But instead it's like, I really care about being here for you, and I get that you're looking for support to get through this. I'm also worried about these kids, and I want to talk with you about how do we make sure that they're protected. And it needs to make sense to me, like, right? Like it, and then the second thing, so that was one idea that I heard you talk about, but then we were started talking about um, understanding your own limits. That's the next question that I want to talk about. And that's the question of setting boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking about privacy and confidentiality. Now I want to talk about boundaries. And for me, I think that there's really two main types of boundaries when offering peer support. One type of boundary is setting a boundary, an emotional boundary
Mm-hmm.
around what I'm capable of, like what are my emotional limits for being able to be present. So for example, like you brought up, like if I'm a victim, if I was a victim of some type of child abuse, and I'm talking to someone who is a perpetrator of that exact type of child abuse, I need to recognize I I honor the part of you that's looking to get support, that doesn't want to perpetuate this cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be able to be present for you in the way that you're going to need, and we need to find
Absolutely.
someone who is. So there's that kind of boundary, and then there's how to set boundaries that are more like time and energy boundaries, of
Yes.
like, rather than being on call 24/7 and sort of
Mm-hmm.
be in this codependent, like, once I've said that I can support somebody, now I'm at their beck and call. We need to be able to set boundaries there too. So I'm curious, you talked a little bit about emotional boundaries, but I guess I'm wondering about advice for people. If you're like, first, how do you know when it's time for you to set an emotional boundary, that like the topic or the subject or whatever it is about this relationship isn't working for me emotionally?
Mm-hmm.
I can't be in this role for you,
Mm-hmm.
at least about this. How do you notice that, and then how do you communicate it?
Absolutely. I think that like just like you named, one of the really important pieces of validating and creating safe space is alliance. But alliance does not mean an automatic suppression of the things that hurt you, and the triggers that you may have. And being able to honor that within yourself and be able to place that boundary is also a form of alliance within that relationship, to know I still want to be an ally to make sure that you're getting the best support, as I'm honoring your need to, to want to get help about whatever this is. And so I think that for a person in the peer support role, there is a certain there's a certain obligation and a certain, I guess, quest that you've set and stepped up to to say that I'm going to be in this peer support role and really support somebody through this, knowing that I may not know what's coming to me on the other side within this virtual space or realm, when you're just when you're just having to just be a support to users that you may not know. Within your own personal relationships, I think that it becomes different because you know this person, and there's a different investment, and you may not be able to choose to never see this person again. They might be at your dinner table. They might, there might be times where you're going to have to interact with this person. And so being loyal to the things that hurt you and being able to work through them, I think is very important. Once you recognize them and you're able to go back and be able to do the soul work to bring yourself to a space of healing, and if it outweighs and is a heavier burden on you, then being true to making sure that you're on call for a person, I think that it takes the wisdom and the discipline to say, I'm not the person to be able to support you through this, but I do want to find you someone who who can, because I still care for you as a person. And even within the peer support role, that's why I think that it's so important to say, I am not a court mandated reporter or a professional in the way that I have a certain obligation to go through an entire session or go and be committed to being that person at every call. And in that role and in that understanding, a peer support counselor or the peer support relationship gives both people the ability to be able to authentically be themselves, to be able to stay true to the nature of their own being, and then understanding the nature in someone else, and being able to to say, hey, like my worldview is not to the point, or my healing process is not to the level that is able to address this and be the best benefit for you, or be the best person to be able to create the safe space that you so need. First, I think it's really, really important to commend somebody and say, wow, I really thank you for being able to name this and to say this. And for me, it does something for me also. Like, there's a certain healing I think that comes from me, even if I talk to somebody who is a perpetrator of the sexual abuse towards children. Even though that's my trigger and that's my lived experience, I could honor and find healing in knowing that there are people that want to heal. There are people that want to get help. There are people who want the space to be able to talk about how to get through this. But I myself need to be able to protect my space and make sure that I could continue to be a support and continue to feel like I'm honoring and protecting others from being able to go through this by getting you the best person to be able to maneuver and have this conversation with you.
Yeah, and I think that's true. That I believe that that's just as true for professional therapists. Like that
Yeah,
ability to recognize what they might call countertransference,
yeah,
and like what is getting in the way of me being able to actually be there for somebody. The thing that I want to add to what you were saying is that, so just personally speaking, um, I I feel like a big spiritual practice for me is learning how to love and accept different types of people, learning how to love and accept people in wherever they are.
yep,
And the recognition for me comes from recognizing, like, okay, so right now I'm not able to love and accept this person. And what I need, and what's going to be the most beneficial for both of us, is for me to help you find someone who has an easier time with you. And
yes,
then in the meantime, I can work on trying to develop my capacity to love and accept that person, like from a distance, like from
yeah,
sort of a safe distance. And I can be like, visualizing them and trying to like, how do I connect with this person, and journaling about it. And that can be my own kind of growth work.
yes,
The next part, and this might be a little bit, kind of simpler, or however we want to talk about it, but it's um, setting boundaries around your time and energy.
mm,
So I'll give you an example. Okay, so I'm a friend of yours, and I'm going through a really hard time as a parent. I've got, 2 teenage kids and we're fighting all the time. And I just hate going home. And I've tried to talk with a bunch of other people and it just feels just annoying and unhelpful. And then I talk to you and I find it's really helpful. And now I call you every day and I want to talk to
Yeah.
you for like a couple hours every day. And like, just
Yeah.
like, I'm like texting you and like, you get 6 kind of demanding, like, where are you? Where are you? I need you. I need you.
Yes.
So as you begin to develop this capacity for people in your life, what you find is that it's like your water and all these people are dying of thirst.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, please.
Give
And
it up.
so how do you keep yourself sane in that?
I think that in the development of the relationship and in that authenticity, it's being able to say to a person and gaining the strength to say, in order for me to be able to do this, there's also a certain piece of self-care that I need to establish, and have the discipline to be able to protect within myself.
Mm-hmm.
And saying that to somebody, of not making them feel like they're the irritation, or naming that they're like, you're really annoying me, or you're really like, I really feel oppressed, or I really feel like there's a bleeding of boundaries here. It's being able to say and honor, hey, and the reason why I'm able to do this, and the reason why I am like to be able to pour into other people, is that there's space and time that I need to be able to pour within myself, to myself. And so making it a certain a full understanding on both sides that I too need my supports. I too need, I'm also human. I think that's what's like, I think I named it in some of our earlier videos, that what I love about peer support is that the world is your research. And the world is where you gain your training. And relationships, not only one relationship, but so many relationships that you have, with every interaction that you have, becomes a training to be a more compassionate, more honest, and more forthcoming person. And so being like, and having that, and being and naming, I now need space for myself to be able to be even the best support to you, because in my healing and where I need to be in order to be a support to not only you but so many people in my life, is that I need to stay loyal to a certain piece of me and my time and my space.
Yeah. 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 So that, like, what I hear you describing there is, um, it's this, like, I care about you
Yes.
and that your well-being is really important for me. And yeah, and I want to let you know that it's that I need, like, I have a limited amount of time and energy that I can offer you. And it's not because I don't care about you. It's not because I don't really want to help. It's just that's what I have. This is what I have to offer.
Yep.
And I recognize, and you need to recognize that, like, some people are going to feel triggered by that. They're going to,
Yeah.
they'll have all their, withholding kinds of triggers can come up. And we can be open to that,
Yeah.
because it is this, you're just seeing their suffering. You're just seeing them express, like, is there some way that I can get more of your time and energy? But it's this thing of, I want to help and I have a limited capacity. And I feel like for me, one of the biggest takeaways for providing peer support is recognizing I'm a human being who wants to help. I have something valuable to offer, but not everything. I can be something for you, but
Hmm.
not everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so being able to just rest in that. And that's like, because so often we feel like we either need to be, I want to be everything for someone, or that means I'm nothing.
Hmm.
And that's what I want to, and I feel like for peer support, it's like seeing the value in that allows us to
Yeah.
really show up different.
I think like somebody said something to me that really helped me once, and I'm sure that's an affirmation that so many have heard, that sometimes you really have to sit within yourself and say, I am enough, I give enough, I do enough. I have family members that are in crisis and war zone areas.
Yeah.
And I have to acknowledge what I can control and what I have control over, what I have the capacity to be able to give to a person, and really place the value in what I can and am willing and have given. And what I cannot give, I cannot sit and, like, and allow to erode my spirit, because then that's not going to make me beneficial to this person or be a support to this person, because then I start to begin to feel the burdens of everything that I can't do. And I think that it's really, really important to live in the affirmations of understanding what we can give. And being able to honor and cherish and celebrate that, and the things that you cannot give, like for now, when once I know better, once I can give more, then I do, and that I've learned. But in the space that I'm in now, I have to be able to say I cannot pour all of myself without being able to also have something poured back into me.
I want to thank everybody for listening. So this has been Privacy and Boundaries in Peer Support. If you have questions, you can put them in the comments. You can kind of reach out to us because we're going to keep recording more of these videos. And then if you're looking for this kind of support, if you're someone who is looking for really high quality mental health support in your life, then you can check out peercollective.com. Thanks a lot.
Yes. Thank you.